Hello and welcome everybody. I'm Stephen and I'm a popular investor on eToro. Thanks very much for tuning into my video today, and as usual, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. That will be amazing, guys. So on to today's video, and I'm going to be doing a summary of what happened overall for the month of October, as well as describing some of the key events that happened last week overall in the market. So overall for October, and it's a month I labeled at the beginning of the month as October, as I expected October to be a very strong month overall for the market, and it turned out to be. So overall our portfolio is up on the last day of October at about 12%, and that takes our year-to-date total up to 138%, which is a really great result and something I'm really pleased with. And I hope before the end of the year in 2021 that I can take that number up even further, whilst making sure that I also protect your capital in the best way I possibly can and sticking to my overall strategy. I'm really happy that most of you that copy me are in profit now. And I know that there may be some that may have copied at times where our portfolio was at all-time highs. And thanks very much for being patient. And also please remember to continue with a dollar cost averaging approach, as it smooths out the effect of market timing overall. However, patience is really important, and just make sure that the most important thing is not timing the markets in the short term, but it's about time in the markets. The stocks in our portfolio generally performed really well last month, especially those in the technology sector, as well as our COVID-19 recovery plays, and also our oil and gas related stocks that did really well as oil hit multi-year highs. Crypto also performed really well in the month of October, as Bitcoin took out its all-time highs at one point, as well as Ethereum also hitting all-time highs. And many of the altcoins also performed really well in our portfolio, which helped add to our overall performance. I have been trimming some of those crypto positions as we have hit all-time highs, and as per my strategy, as the crypto prices continue to go up in price and as the cycle progresses, I have been taking profits and I have been allocating those into other asset classes such as stocks. So I have added to our stock positions overall in the month of October. I've also taken several entirely new positions in our portfolio in October. And one of those stocks that I took a position in was in Micron Technologies, which is a stock that I am really bullish on overall for the long term. And Micron Technologies has been beaten down over the last couple of months, as there's been a lot of supply chain pressures and other issues within the business. However, I do perceive these to be relatively short term, and I think that this stock is going to do really well in 2022, and I will probably continue to add to this position. The second stock that I have put into our portfolio is a stock called Dana Holdings, which is a automobile parts manufacturer, and they do specialize majority in the EV car space, and they have a lot of some of the largest auto manufacturers in the world, such as Ford, as their customers. So again, I will also try to look to increase that position over time. So as I move on to the global weekly market update, and I will start off in the US, and last week was an extremely good week overall for the US stock market, and the S&P 500 was up about 1.3% for last week, and the Nasdaq was up about 2.6%, and our portfolio was up about 1.5%, so it was up slightly higher than the S&P 500, but slightly below the Nasdaq's overall performance. The Q3 earnings reports came out last week, thick and fast, but it was generally a good set of earnings reports that were released. However, there were a few concerns around supply chain bottlenecks and inflation overall in the economy, and this showed some weakness in terms of Amazon and Apple, who had to lower some of their sales forecasts overall, and this was because of the supply chain issues as well as some labor shortages in the market. There was also a little bit of progress around the social infrastructure bill, as President Biden last week met the West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, and it is seen that he is very key to get his vote on the overall bill because he has a swing vote, and it is likely that if he can get him on board, then he may be able to get through this 1.75 trillion social infrastructure bill. There was also mixed data released from the US, and one of those data points was that the economy had expanded by 2% in the last quarter on an annualized basis, and that was slightly below expectations. And if we compare that to the previous quarter, which was at about 6.6%, there was clearly a little bit of pessimism in the market that the expansion was starting to slow. Data also showed that home sales had dipped. However, there was positive news as the jobless claims were at a new pandemic low. Personal consumption expenditure also increased by 3.6% over a one-year period. And also there was some survey results that showed in the short term that the expectations were that inflation would continue to increase. Over to Europe now, and last week was overall a very strong week for European indices, and there was also some data released from the EU which said that the European economy had expanded by about 2.2% in quarter three, and if we compare that to quarter two, which was at about 2.2%, we are seeing some very slow, steady growth overall in the EU area. And also in particular, it showed that there had been strong GDP growth in both Italy and France last quarter. The EU inflation rate was also released for October at about 4.1%, which astonishingly was actually a 13-year inflation high for Europe. The European Central Bank also said last week that it was going to continue its emergency purchasing program, which was put in place due to COVID-19. However, they were going to continue this at a modest pace, and it is very likely that they will continue with this program until March 2022. The president of the ECB, Christine Lagarde, said last week that inflation could go on for longer than had initially been expected. However, she did expect it to go back to the ECB's targeted rate at 2% by 2023. The UK also revised its GDP growth forecast for 2021, and it's now anticipated for GDP to grow at about 6.5%, and that is uplifted from the previous forecast of about 6%. They are also forecasting for 2022 that GDP growth should be around 6%. So as we move on to China now, and again, there was a lot of weakness overall in the Chinese stock market last week, and this put a little bit of a dampener on our overall portfolio performance. And again, a lot of this was to do with the fears and the anxiety around the property sector in China. And there's a company called Modern Land which defaulted on a $250 million bond last week, which put further fears into the market. And this actually caused a lot of the rating agencies in China to actually downgrade many of the real estate companies in China. So again, this intensified some of the fears. On Friday, the People's Bank of China also injected about $31.2 billion worth of liquidity into the overall banking system in China. China also continued with its clampdown of technology-related companies, as it actually implemented a new regulation which says that technology companies with over 1 million users have to conduct a security review before any data can be released to foreign participants. And again, this is to do with national security issues that China have been trying to implement over the last kind of 6 months or so, and to make sure that they can review data before it's released outside of China. So as we move on to our top 3 performing stocks of last week, and again at number 1 for a second week in a row was Nel Hydrogen. And Nel Hydrogen was up again about 14.1% last week. And this is on the back of the really excellent quarterly earnings report, which was about 2 weeks ago now. And it's continued to grow from strength to strength, as there is a lot of optimism overall for not only hydrogen, but also the growth of companies in that sector. The second best performing stock in our portfolio last week was Blue Pharmaceuticals, which was up about 12.5%. And the third best performing stock in our portfolio last week was the Compass Group, which was up about 7.5%. And the Compass Group is a catering company which operates around the world, and this has really been a big beneficiary of the opening up after COVID-19 restrictions in terms of the hospitality and the service sector. So that continues to grow from strength to strength. As we move on to crypto now, and for the third consecutive week, Bitcoin has finished above that all-important $60,000 psychological mark. And it was also shown that there was a lot of aggressive buying last week on Coinbase, which may show that some of the institutions are starting to take a more aggressive position overall in Bitcoin. So as I mentioned in my video last week, I expected Bitcoin to consolidate for a short period of time, but it was very important for it to close above that very important $60,000 psychological mark overall for the week, and I'm still expecting this really explosive Q3 from Bitcoin and from cryptocurrencies, and I expect now in November for that move to become a lot more aggressive. And as you all know, and I've been saying in my previous videos, that as the cycle progresses, the moves become a lot more aggressive and the volatility increases. And I'm expecting now Bitcoin over the next couple of weeks to make another break for that all-time high and set new all-time highs in November. Over the last couple of weeks, I've also been talking about several Bitcoin ETFs that have been approved, and another one which is Grayscale Trust, who currently have the GBTC Trust, are planning to launch an ETF, and they have an application that's currently in place. There was a spokesman for Grayscale this week who said that he expected a Grayscale ETF to be approved by June 2022. Grayscale are a massive player and they have a huge amounts of assets under management, and if this is converted into a physical Bitcoin ETF, I think this is going to be extremely good for the markets going forward. There was also a lot of positive sentiment overall in crypto this week, as the head of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, Jelena McWilliams, said that they were going to try to implement regulations which would make it easier for banks to be able to custody crypto for its customers. So this is a very positive breakthrough. Ethereum also continued to take out its all-time highs, and for the very first time traded at $4,400. And I'm expecting Ethereum to continue to do well for the rest of 2021, as there is a lot of focus at the moment around decentralized finance, smart contracts, and also around the craze around non-fungible tokens and NFTs, which are operating on the Ethereum blockchain. And I really would not be surprised if before the end of 2021 that Ethereum was around the $6,000 to $8,000 range. So I think it still has quite far to run before the end of 2021. I'm sure you also wouldn't fail to have noticed that last week Shiba Inu coin also went parabolic. And as you guys will remember, in kind of April, May last year, Dogecoin, which is another meme related dog token, also went parabolic. But I also just really want to just give a word of caution to my copyers. I'm not discouraging you from being involved in these meme coins, but what I want to say to you is just be extremely careful, because they can go parabolic very quickly, but they can also drop very quickly, like we saw with Dogecoin. So if you are involved overall in these meme coins, then please remember to take profit if you are wildly up, and also don't invest more than you can afford to lose, because these types of coins are very speculative at best. So I'm not going to be putting any of these meme coins in our portfolio because I have a strong responsibility to not only grow your money but also to protect it. But just be very careful when trading these meme coins. Thank you very much for listening to my video today, and as usual, if you have any questions, then please don't hesitate to leave them below. And also, I'm going to not only try to provide you as good results as I possibly can, but I'm also going to communicate with you very regularly to provide as much added value as I can to you and provide you with unique learning experiences. Also, don't forget to join our community Discord group. You can find the link below in the description. So thanks very much for listening to this summary of October. And as usual, have a great week ahead.